Secretary Barca, are you going to be the first?
Yes.
I'm going to get you just to stand there for.
All set? This is an important day for the people of the state of Wisconsin, as this is POW MIA Day, and today is the day we fully have a seat in the House of State Government reserved for service members who have not yet returned or been accounted for. In Wisconsin, we believe strongly that every person must have a seat at the table of democracy. And this seat, which we're about to unveil, reminds us that any decisions made in this Capitol must consider the service member that has not yet returned, and to factor into the equation the interests of all those individuals and their families who are still either POW or MIA. We need to acknowledge it, as wonderful as it is to be together today to commemorate this monument, and soon for the first time to actually be able to unveil it, a monument to our Wisconsin heroes, and realize the work that so many have contributed to. We had hoped that we could have had an honor guard, a military band, thousands of veterans and their admirers, other distinguished speakers, were it not for the pandemic. So we're hoping that next year we'll be able to come back together on the first anniversary and have a rededication and ensure that we can have so many of the heroes and people and veterans groups and organizations that were part of this. Due to the pandemic and not having all these people here, we certainly appreciate WisconsinEye covering this live for veterans and others who were so involved to be part of it. But we also felt collectively it was important to give a short description of how we came to this day and the key people and individuals that contributed to having this dedication. For those watching live on WisconsinEye, we're dubbing this the initial dedication because of the fact that we're hoping that next year we can have all the trappings important for an occasion of this significance. This initiative began with the Rolling Thunder, an organization whose very mission is to look out for the interests of the POW MIA. And they expressed the need for this chair in the Capitol in a place of importance that we now are unveiling. My involvement came in the Heroes Cafe roughly 3 years ago, where we were celebrating veterans about to make their honor flight. And Rolling Thunder Chairman, Chapter 2, Steve Nelson, who's with us here today, asked if we couldn't work together to move this forward. Not hesitating, with the knowledge of how important this would be, we set up an initial meeting just a few weeks later where 5 veteran leaders in the auxiliary came together and prepared to work to make this a reality. We soon learned that the only way to make it happen would be if the SCIRB Commission, the State Capitol Executive Residence Commission, which I had never heard of, Governor, being a legislator for 20 years, I found out how powerful they were. And thankfully, in meeting with Senator Fred Risser, who was the chair, and vice chair, Representative Amy Laubenbach, they provided terrific guidance of what we would need to do to achieve putting together this monument. They indicated the most important thing was that this would not happen unless all the veterans groups in Wisconsin supported the initiative. So Paula Velton of DOA, who staffs that committee, helped in the next 4 meetings, and at this point, Jason Johns of VFW came together to bring in his important group to support Tim Thompson, who was then the state liaison of Rolling Thunder, and Mark Herrmann, who was soon to take over as the chair, as the state liaison. And we brought in Mike Telesroll, who was the Veterans Museum executive director at that time, and a historian to ensure it would fit the architectural and the historical significance needed for a monument in the Rotunda in the Capitol. At that point, Assembly Chief Clerk Patrick Fuller, a distinguished veteran himself, was immediately supportive and played a key role in procuring the chair, which you'll soon see is an important part of this monument, so it could be an actual chair for decision makers and to have that chair available for when that POW returns. So exactly 2 years ago yesterday, if you can imagine, the SCRB Commission met for its first time, and I can assure you they take their responsibilities very seriously. And they gave only tentative but unanimous approval to move forward, but with the high standards for design to ensure it would fit perfectly with the front of the monument, our beautiful Veterans Monument, and the DOA went to work. Jason Rattel, Darren Smith, Jeff Lamar, Rick Vick, Daniel Byerly ensured that we met every specification needed to match the marble on the base. The plaque had to be the exact same material, the same font size, and we had to meet those exacting standards. Once we had that and the approximate cost resolved, we went forward to the Council of Veterans and the Board of Veterans Affairs in Eau Claire in order to meet SCRB's requirement that we get a unanimous vote. And it took enormous preparations of documents, photos that came about from computer-aided designs that Matt Egger and Nicole Pegram from my staff developed in conjunction with Chief Fuller's graphic design team. Of course, nothing happens in the Chief Clerk's office without the help of the top legislative leaders, who I also want to recognize, especially Speaker Voss, given the Assembly took the lead. Also, that unanimous support never would have happened without the strong support and the fantastic staff of the Department of Veterans Affairs. During that phase, especially Assistant Deputy Kathy Still was incredibly helpful in guiding us through those meetings that we had with the Council of Veterans and the Board of Veterans Affairs. Also, I want to recognize the previous Secretary, Dan Zimmerman, for his support as well. And finally, before I introduce Secretary Mary Kolar, who will be next, was so incredibly helpful these last year and a half as navigating through all of what it takes to be here as only a former Navy captain could do. And she lent her staff to finalize the preparations for today, Carla Viju, who ensured WisconsinEye, and we were all here to commemorate this event properly. We want to thank WisconsinEye for that. I also want to thank our talented DOR videographer who's taping this so it'll be available on the Department of Veterans Affairs website. When we went back for final approval of SCRB on February 11th, Secretary Kolar, the veterans leaders, and I were so fortunate that Governor Evers and his team worked hard to give their full support. So we thank you, Governor Evers, for providing that type of important support to get that final approval. However, even with the governor's support, they were certainly not going to give final approval without us figuring out how we were going to pay for it. And this is where the state's largest combat veterans group, the VFW, played such a key role. And we certainly want to also recognize, State Commander Jason Johns, and especially on the funding side, the Adjutant David Green, who worked so hard time and time again to convince his team to bring forward the resources to help support the Rolling Thunder, and who you'll be hearing from very soon. So now I get to introduce someone who's been a fantastic leader for the Department of Veterans Affairs, who even worked to make sure with Sergeant Hyde of the State Patrol to ensure that we would be prepared for today's event. And incidentally, one initiative that I know she's been very supportive of, which we hope will be ready for next year's unveiling, which is front and center of this effort, is the Wisconsin Missing in Action Recovery and Identification Project, authored by Representative Skoronsky and Representative Sinicki, who are such passionate leaders in this, Senator Roth, Pienga, and Miller. They passed this pilot project earlier this year to fund the incredible UW Project Office that we hope will come to fruition next year. So Secretary Kolar, thank you for your fantastic work to making this monument a reality and the broader issue of the POW MIA. We thank you, and we ask you to add your important voice here today.
Thank you, Secretary Barca. Today, we remember American service members who endured enormous physical and mental hardships as prisoners of war, as well as those still missing in action. Men and women who served our country honorably and gave tremendously. According to the Department of Defense POW MIA accounting agency, more than 81,900 Americans remain missing from eras spanning from World War II to more recent conflicts. The United States continuously works to find these service members and return them home. One of these teams working to recover missing military members, as Secretary Barca has mentioned, is the University of Wisconsin Missing in Action Recovery and Identification Project, which, among other recoveries, in 2018 successfully recovered the remains of Second Lieutenant Walter B. Stone, a P-47 Thunderbolt fighter pilot who was shot down in 1943 in northern France. He is now buried in Alabama next to his family. Many other Wisconsinites, including friends and neighbors, are former POWs. Wisconsinites like Darrell Krenz, a native of McFarland, who served as an infantryman in the Korean conflict and was captured in Daejeon in 1950, spending 37 months as a prisoner of war. Or Colonel Don Heilinger of Stoughton, who flew F-105s over Vietnam and was shot down during his 44th combat mission in 1967 and was held prisoner for 6 years. The POW MIA Chair of Honor will help all of us remember the suffering of our state's veterans who were held prisoners of war and recognize the many others who have yet to come home. It is now my great honor to introduce the Governor of the state of Wisconsin, Governor Tony Evers.
Thank you, Secretary Kolar, and what an important day. POW MIA Day has been recognized on the third Friday of September in Wisconsin for nearly 2 decades, since the passage of the 2001 Act 100. On this day, we recognize the profound courage and determination of all current and former American service members and honor the remarkable bravery and resilience of all the POW MIA personnel, as well as the sacrifices of their families, friends, and loved ones. Let this POW MIA Chair of Honor help us pay tribute to the missing and to those service members who know the cost of our freedom, the torment of lonely hours, and the fear and terror of being held hostage, with only the hope of seeing their families and friends. And let us pay tribute to their family members who have felt the anguish of the unknown, many of whom are still waiting for their loved one return. To the prisoners of war, those missing in action, and the friends, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters of those still missing, the unveiling of this Chair of Honor is for you as a reminder that you are not forgotten. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Governor Evers. And now we get to hear from the VFW, the state's largest combat organization, from a very important leader in this state, the state commander, who has always been such a tremendous advocate for veterans, Jason Johns. Thank you.
Well, I think we're at afternoon now, right? So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Peter, for the introduction. That was, you've been just a champion in all of this, really. Thank you so much. As you mentioned, it was almost 3 years ago now that we began this process, and I was a Ledge Committee Chair for the VFW state of Wisconsin at that time, and now here I am 3 years later as a state commander, and this has been one of my #1 priorities. So it's so great personally to see it finally coming to fruition today. And you know, this momentous occasion wouldn't be happening without our VFW State Adjutant, David Green. I know that Secretary Barca has already recognized him as well, but David's been my right-hand man in all of this and helping to raise the funds and working together and planning it. So thank you, David. And to those joining us virtually, welcome. and thank you for taking the time to be with us on WisconsinEye. On behalf of the more than 25,000 members of the Wisconsin Department of Veterans of Foreign Wars and its 8,500 auxiliary members, I express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who partners with us to achieve the placement of this POW MIA Chair of Honor. Such an awesome setting to have this as the permanent home for this chair. This Chair of Honor is more than just wood, marble, granite, and leather. It is a sacred symbol of those U.S. service members from all walks of life, regardless of race, gender, creed, or sexual preference, who travel to locations around the globe in order to defend the freedoms and way of life that we hold dear, but never realize the joy of coming home. The VFW is committed to pursuit of identifying them wherever they may be, and we will never stop our efforts to find them and return them home to their families and communities. Never. Not until the very last one comes home. Since World War II, approximately 82,000 service members have gone missing in action. Of those, 1,500 were from Wisconsin. That's 1,500 Wisconsin heroes, 3,000 mothers and fathers, and countless other wives, husbands, siblings, and children who at one time hugged their loved ones close and said goodbye, not knowing that it would be the last time they would ever see them on this earth. We fly the black POW MIA flags across our great land to remind everyone that there's still a solemn promise to be kept. Those flags complement this chair and proclaim the message that the symbol conveys. Those that have served and sacrificed themselves for the glory of our nation are the true heroes that we bow to with respect and reverence. May their existence be glorified amongst us forever, and let this chair of honor remain as a lighthouse which leads us to fulfill our solemn promise and never stop until all missing are found and delivered home for eternal rest. And finally, for those service members stationed overseas in over 148 countries worldwide, the VFW proclaims to you that your brothers and sisters in arms stand by, ready to assist you when you return home. And if our Heavenly Father has a different plan for you, we stand ready to assist those that you love. We will never forget you, and we will never leave you behind. Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, we want to call up someone who has been a tremendous leader of an organization that every day makes it their mission to look out for the POW MIA. He's president of Chapter 5. He's a state liaison for Rolling Thunder and just a tremendous champion for this project. Mark Herrmann, my friend.
Thank you. What an act to follow. I'm really humbled by all the people that have attended here today. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Herrmann, and I am the current state liaison of Rolling Thunder, Wisconsin, and president of Rolling Thunder Chapter 5, Wisconsin, here in Madison. Rolling Thunder Incorporated is a nonprofit organization in which everyone donates his or her time because we believe in the POW MIA issue, reflected in our mission statement, which reads, "The major function of Rolling Thunder Incorporated is to publicize the POW MIA issue, to educate the public that many American prisoners of war were left behind after all previous wars, and to correct the past and to protect future veterans from being left behind should they become prisoners of war missing in action. We are also committed to helping American veterans from all wars." Today, September 18th, 2020, the third Friday of September, is POW MIA Recognition Day. Today, we recognize those POW MIAs by dedicating this Chair of Honor and its permanent placement here in the capital of the great state of Wisconsin. It will be a daily reminder to all who pass before it that we, as citizens of Wisconsin and the USA, have not forgotten and will always remember our prisoners of war missing in action. As stated by Alexander Pope, remembrance and reflection how allied. With thin partitions divide sense from thought. Rolling Thunder Incorporated National Press Release for today. National POW MIA Recognition Day reads, September 18th is National POW MIA Recognition Day and is about remembering the heroism and sacrifices, ultimate sacrifices, made by tens of thousands of our fellow Americans who remain missing and unaccounted for. Last seen as prisoners of war, last declared missing in action. Remembrance and reflection are action words and are tied together by our sense and thought. While we are Rolling Thunder members, we will stop and observe the day with the nation and all it entails. In reality, each and every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, for us is about keeping remembrance alive through interaction with our past and history. And very definition of the culture of remembrance and constant reflection that our freedom was not, is not, will never be free. On this day, we salute the men and women who served and sacrificed to keep our country free. We cannot forget to recognize the families of those missing in action, those who every day hold on to the hope that one day their loved ones will return home. And we cannot forget our ex-prisoners of war who endured captivity and unspeakable atrocities by enemy hands, and their families. On this day and each and every day, we remind everyone of our nation's commitment, keeping the promise of a full accounting of every single American soul unaccounted for. How appropriate that we dedicate this chair here in the Capitol Rotunda and write history for Wisconsin. Thanks to everyone responsible for having a hand in making this happen, and let's leave here today promising ourselves to never forget, always remember.
Before we close, I think it would be appropriate, first of all, I want to recognize Chief Justice Patience Rogansack, who came to join us here today. And I think it'd be appropriate that we pause and reflect and have a minute of silence. Pray to our good Lord that we can fully account for the POW MIA and to ask the good Lord to hold those families in the palm of his hand. So with that, thank you all so very much.
Okay, a picture with the governor and the cabinet secretary.